going, Soul family? Today I'm starting work on some more benches for the kitchen. I've already made 2 benches, custom benches, and I'll show you here in a second, out of some 2x4s, 2x8s. Really simple design. I got it from someone else on the internet. And I was going to show you my process. First of all, here's what the finished product looks like. The only thing I did to this, after I put it together, is I just put some clear polyurethane sealer on it. And just a real simple design. The bottom, I put all the rough parts, the roughest parts. I thought about putting on the top, but I thought it'd be too much treatment to get keep all the splinters out. But then you just have basically a box of 2x4s, 15.5 inches by 8 inches. And I cut them, of course, with a miter saw. Miter saw gives you perfect 90-degree cuts on all of these so that when you glue and screw them together, they're going to be perfectly square. One of the keys to making sure that the cuts are identical is to mark your work. I'm marking these at 15.5 and 8 inches and then cutting them dead on the line. But what happens when I do that is that I actually end up with something that is not quite that actual length. So I'm marking this one at 8 inches. I'm going to cut it with 8 inches dead center of my laser, but for those of you who've done woodwork, you know I'm going to lose part of that 8 inches to the width of the blade. And that's fine because the dimension is not so important as making sure all the parts are the exact same size. So cutting them this way, I end up with all of these pieces that are identical in length. So they're actually 7 and just a hair over 7/8, but they're identical in length. And that's critical to getting a nice square, solid build. So once I cut this, you'll see that even though I measured at 8 inches, it's no longer 8 inches, it's actually 15/16, which is fine because they're all exactly the same. Time to cut the next one. Dead in the center. And as always, safety first. Eyes protected. Because I was careful, you can see that there's barely any splintering on this cut. Nice and clean. Be less sanding and a much smoother cut. One of the things I'll do too with the sawdust bag for my saw, instead of just throwing the sawdust away, I have a couple vehicles that leak a little bit, so I'll put some of the sawdust out, and then I'll come over here and I'll squeeze it in and sweep it up, unless the wind blows it all away before I get a chance to do it. Another way to kind of reuse and reduce use, I usually use cat litter because cat litter is great at picking up oil, but sawdust does a pretty good job to clean up the bulk of the mess too. Next thing is some sanding. We got to take some edges off these things. Not severe sanding at this point. I just want to knock off the rough edges, get rid of the little splinters, so that there's no ugliness to deal with. Remember, this ain't rocket science. We're just making some homemade benches here. And for those of you that are thinking, gee, why doesn't he get like a belt sander, something that mounts to a bench so that he doesn't have to work so hard? I want some of those other bigger tools that mount to like benches and things. I want to get some nice stuff, but first the Gypsy Mama, my wife, she's got to see some product, and when she sees that I'm actually making things that are, good for the house, when she sees stuff like this, beautiful piece of wood sitting in her kitchen next to her beautiful table. You know, she's not gonna be quite so upset when I come home with, you know, more expensive tools. Now I'm gonna take those 15.5-inch and 8-inch 2x4 pieces and put them in a square, drill them out, put some glue in between these guys, and screw them together to make some nice solid pedestals for the benches. Now, if all my cutting and screwing and clamping and gluing was done correctly, I should see that this piece right here is nice and even with the piece down there. So yeah, look at that, nice and straight. All I got to do is do this 4 times because there's 2 for each bench. So the next part is to install the legs. I'm just doing that by measuring 6 inches from the end to this guy, centering this, which is about 2 7/8, and then using some giant clamps to hold the boards even lengthwise so that those are even. And then as soon as I get all those started, loosen the big clamp and let this kind of self-align the big boards as the screws pull it together. Now we just lift the guy up. Bench is basically done. All I gotta do is the finish sand on all these edges, round all these edges off real nice, take off any extra stuff that's popped up, and get rid of stuff like that, footprints and that, and give it a nice 220 sand, and then go ahead and get some sealant on it. I don't know if I want to do all that cutting and screwing again. I got a better idea. Oh yeah, that's a lot easier than doing the actual work. Can I just say once again how much I love my Keeter collapsible workbench? Holds 1,000 pounds, folds up, stows away in like a 4-inch space. And kudos to the guys at Ace Hardware who turned me onto this thing. It is a fantastic portable workbench. Thanks, Ace Hardware guys. Like a glove. Stows nice. Oh, yeah, like a glove. Purely accidentally. Yeah, I wasn't trying to. Yeah, no, really, I didn't even know the gloves were there. Somebody stuck them out here on my bench, so purely happy coincidence. One of the last things I need to do before I get to doing the sanding and the finish on these benches is I've got some wood filler here, and I want to take this stuff and put it in these holes, and then sand those smooth so we can hide the screws. We don't want to see any screws on the finished product, so we want to have it just nice wood. You'll see a little brown spot there, but it won't be quite as noticeable because it'll be almost the same exact color as the wood itself. Time to get these completely sanded. I had already done the repairs or the covering of the holes of the screws. That's all dried up now. We're getting ready to sand all those. I actually sanded this first one, and you can see if you look at the edges here, got some nice smooth edges, rounded corners, and it's nice. The top is all nice and smooth. Lots of defects, which is sort of desirable because this project is supposed to just look like some rough wood that's been, cleaned up a little bit. And but you can see, of course, that there's been no sanding done on the second one. It's got these sharp edges still and a very rough surface, which is actually even easier to see in the light. You see how smooth that one is and how rough that still is. So we're gonna get that sanded down and then we're gonna stain them. Both benches are completely sanded. The next thing to do is to put the polyurethane on them, seal them up, and stick them in the dining room. There they are. 2 coats, polyurethane. Still drying. But we'll get those into the house as soon as they're done. Almost there. Well, the benches are all done drying. Brought them in the kitchen. They look great, they work great. Man, that last segment looked like it was shot on old VHS camera from the 1980s. I think I need to use a light or start shooting in the daytime. Anyway, if you like this content, you like this sort of content, or any of the other stuff you find on my channel, please click the bell so that you get notifications. Feel free to subscribe if you like that sort of thing, and click like, and tell a friend. Hope you guys have an awesome day. Love you, Soul Family. See you soon. Right here and here.